First exciting piece of news. I got a cat. Everybody, this is Vinny. Vinny, look! AKA Vincenzo Vincent, the artist, but mostly little Vinny. He's 6 months old now, I think, and he absolutely loves me. Oh, and the sign is back and working again. So things are looking up. Aren't you just the cutest? Seriously though, welcome back. I had a nice long break. It was about, well, I was making some basketball videos here and there, but from GAMSAT content, I've had a few months off. Since the whole March GAMSAT dilemma, I needed some time to focus on uni and basketball and things, and life has been absolutely hectic. But I'm ready to jump back into it, and I'm here to help you September sitters. I'm back tutoring and everything. The course is still up. So for those of you who need some extra help, all my links will be in the link below. Speaking of tutoring, so out of the students that I helped in the March 2022 GAMSAT, we managed to get one student in an 83 and another an 81 and a few others in the high 70s. So we had quite a successful run up. But what I wanted to do today is go through what got them those scores. What were the qualities of their essays and their practice that got them those scores, that managed to get them even higher than I did. That's what we're gonna look in today to help hopefully you guys who are still looking to sit the GAMSAT and are wondering how to crack into those 80s, because a lot of the information out there can be a bit confusing and overwhelming. So I'm gonna break it down for you today, the qualities that I think managed to get my students those excellent marks that they did. If you guys are watching as well, congratulations, what a successful GAMSAT. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy the video.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. A hard time if your motion is still. Then you move some things around because the lyrics is ill.
Hi guys, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Kate Robson and I scored 80 in section 2 of the GAMSAT back in March 2021. Since then, I've had a big year. I think this month is gonna mark a year since I've been posting content on YouTube, excuse the cat. Yeah, a year on YouTube. So that's also a big thing to celebrate. It's been such a wild ride. I've had such an amazing time. Yeah, I've been tutoring and marking essays. I've kind of like built a business as well since, like reflecting on the last year that's been, it's actually crazy how much has changed. So thank you to everybody that has been watching my videos and that is still continuing to subscribe. Yeah, I'm ready to get back into it and to build this channel more and to put more of my energy into it. Even though I have so much going on, I'm definitely one of those people that likes to do too much and overcommits themselves. But yeah, it's been amazing. I wouldn't take any of it back, and I'm so excited to see where this channel goes. So if you are new here, please feel free to hit the like button and the subscribe button and join the community. And yeah, it'll be lots of fun. Before we do get into it, I do just want to do a quick plug. I've got an online course that's got everything to do with how I scored 80 in section 2. I'll put the link in the link below. I've also got a weekly newsletter running, which I'm going to be starting up again this week to help you guys with your research recommendations that will help you with section 2. And I'm also tutoring, and I'll probably start marking essays again. I'm still taking on a few more students for the September sitting, so I'll pop all the links in the video description below and you guys can sign up and save yourself a spot. Aside from that, let's get straight into the video and not waste any more time. So here are 4 things that I think my students, my high scoring students, did really, really well, and that likely contributed to them getting that high mark in section 2 for the March 2022 sitting. The first thing is to use philosophical and political language. This thing is something that I've been grappling with for the last year since I've been tutoring, but I think that for the majority of the high scoring essays that I've seen, they use philosophical and political language to talk about philosophical and political things. So it's all about giving your essay an intellectual edge by analyzing the concepts that you're looking at and the themes that you're looking at through a political or philosophical lens. So it's not just using philosophical and political language to show off your language and your vocabulary that you know, but it's looking at the topics that you're addressing and analyzing them through a political and philosophical lens that is considering how politics is involved in the topic that you're talking about and how philosophy might be involved in the topic that you're talking about, and using concepts that have been studied, theories that have been studied in these areas, to do that higher order analysis of these complex topics. Like, if the topic is opinions, how are our opinions influenced by the politics around us? How are they influenced by our philosophical approaches to life? How might we apply philosophical theory or political theory to these concepts that we're talking about? So some of the things that you might want to talk about and look into for your political edge are communism, capitalism, fascism, totalitarianism, neoliberalism, and liberalism, etc., etc., etc. All of these isms that kind of make up political theory, you can go and research them online and read as many articles as you possibly can and try and understand these theories and these concepts, because you can literally apply them to almost every topic. Like, everything is political in a sense. And if you understand these really common topics in politics, you can learn to analyze the topics that you're talking about in a really interesting way. So think about how you can do that. Some of the philosophical ideas that you might want to look into are the big ones like morality, ethics, deontology, epistemology, rationalism, empiricism, etc., etc., etc. There's so much out there online that you can read about. I can recommend the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy is really good. Even just reading through the Wikipedia pages of these topics and really trying to understand, just starting to build your knowledge bank, contribute to that ideas bank that you've maybe been working on, and how the history of the world has been created in different societies to become what we know it today. Like, what are the systems that are in place? How have philosophical thinkers contributed to our intellectual ability today, or the way our society functions today? Like, there's so much that goes into it and there's so much to know there. So you don't need to know everything, but I think if you can kind of know these key concepts and put them into your essays, it will really bring up the quality of your essays, especially if you do it well. Remember to always do it from a place that's not just adding in the words for the sake of it, but really trying to use these concepts to analyze the topics that you're talking about. That's another one of the reasons that I've been doing the newsletter, to try and prompt you guys to give you ideas of things to research. And so every week I include a research recommendation in those of things in politics or philosophy or whatever it is, to try and help you build your knowledge and your ideas bank. You can sign up on my website, but you can also read previous issues of the newsletter, and I've gone through kind of like the main ones already. So have a read through those, and hopefully they'll inspire you to go and research a little bit further and give you some articles and things that I found interesting along the way. You can write politically and philosophically both in task A and task B, although it probably will come up more in your task A essays naturally if you're writing through an argumentative style. But also if you're using my reflective style that I've mentioned in previous videos and that I'll link up here. I haven't done this in a while. Which side is it? This side. Yeah, I'll link a video up here where I go through those structures. But in the relation to wider society paragraph of your task B essay, that's a great place to start writing politically and philosophically. Like, say you're analyzing love, or you're writing an essay about love in a task B essay, then you can look at how politics and philosophy have looked at the concept of love and how love is influenced by our political systems. Like, maybe like how love is influenced by our legal systems, the concept of marriage, or like, I don't know, wherever you want to take that. If you can write about, you know, democracy, how democracy has influenced things, like it's influenced everything, especially in Australia, in a Western democratic country. Like, try and add this knowledge and these concepts into every single topic that you talk about, because it would just take that analysis to the next level. I've picked an example from one of my best students who scored the 83, and he's given me permission to show some of his work today. So here's an example of writing politically in one of your essays. This is from the third paragraph, or the relation to wider society paragraph, of his essay about cynicism. So he said, looking to liberal democratic society more broadly, it seems to me that political culture has become overly cynical. Political discourse must turn away from blind cynicism and return to civil debate to allow progress through the discussion of competing ideas. In large part, the economic growth and progress of civil liberties within nations like the US and Australia is due to ideological debate. Yet political discourse now is full of tweets and short soundbites with calls to cancel political opponents and ideas that are outside of the mainstream. To me, this seems counterintuitive in progress. Like, see how he's taken something like cynicism, which he started to talk about early on in the essay, to do with him and how his family has been cynical in their lives, and what he's learned about that. But then he's made this whole third paragraph about cynicism within politics and political discourse, which is like snaps for him for doing so. And it's no wonder he scored 83. My next best tip, and this is something that I go over constantly with my own students, is to define your scope early. So defining your scope means to pick a time or a place or a population, a group of people, and writing your essay about that. The reason that I suggest doing this is because GAMSAT prompts, ACE's prompts, always pertain to something so broad, right? They're about welfare, or they're about government in general, like these massive concepts that are so broad that like it is impossible to address in an 800-word essay or a 900-word essay. So by defining your scope early on, like in the second sentence of your introduction even, by defining a place that you're talking about, or a time that you're talking about, or a group of people that you're talking about, you're honing in your focus into something that's much more tangible and feasible to address to a good extent in an 800-word essay. The main one that's circulating around the GAMSAT community, the main scope that people use, is modern Western democratic societies, because you've got modern, which is a time, Western, which is a place, and democratic societies, which is a population and a way of life. That's like the one that we see everywhere. I think that's mostly because Michael Sunderland uses that scope a lot in his essay, but you can pick anywhere that you want. Like if you grew up in Pakistan and you know a lot about the Pakistani way of government, or like the culture there, like you can talk about just young people in Pakistan, or you can talk about the retirement system in Brazil. Like it depends on what you know about. But if you pick a specific population, you could talk about young people in Australia, or you could talk about young women in Australia in the modern day, or you could talk about women in Australia in the 1960s, you know? Like pick a population and write your essay about them so that you can make more accurate statements. That's what I think it all comes down to. It's about increasing your specificity so you can make more accurate statements. Because if your scope is, you know, nationalism everywhere, or welfare everywhere, or women everywhere, it's really hard to make accurate statements about such a large topic, about such a large concept, or a large group of people, you know? Like we have to account for the particular nuances that contribute to a population's experience and that will contribute to your analysis of that problem or that group of people. You know, like make it easier for yourself to write things that actually make sense and to make accurate statements and provide really good insights about things by honing in your scope and picking something to write about that's a little bit more particular than just the prompt that they give you, which might be nationalism or welfare, you know? Like this is what I see my higher scoring students doing, and it really pays off because they're able to write about something more specific and make more accurate statements. That's just really what it comes down to. I can't say it enough. I'll read you another example from my highest scoring student here, who has very clearly defined his scope that he's addressing in the essay. The capitalist structures within contemporary Western societies, such as the US and Australia, have produced great riches, yet these riches are not as freely accessible to all as the term free market implies. Capitalism has also paved the way for severe wealth inequality and deepened the divide between the haves and the have-nots. So you can see he's writing politically, and he's clearly defined his scope to contemporary Western societies and the capitalist structures within them, such as the US and Australia. You can tell that those sentences and that scope is much better than capitalism has produced great riches for some, but not for others, creating severe wealth inequality and deepening the divide between the haves and have-nots. See, like when I read that sentence, I just think like, where are we seeing this? Where are you talking about? Who are you talking about? And when is this taking place? When you define your scope and you pick somewhere, someone, and some time to talk about, you can make much more accurate statements and set yourself up for a much deeper analysis about a given or particular point. The places that I would do this are particularly in like the second sentence of your introduction in your task A essay. So when you're kind of defining the context, if you've got a hook as your first sentence, the second sentence should really be starting to define your scope and starting to talk about where you're going to be focusing in your essay. You might also want to do this in the topic sentences of your task A essays. So in that first sentence of those body paragraphs, defining exactly what you're talking about, just to be nice and specific. It also will be good to do it in your topic sentence of your relation to wider society paragraph of your task B essay. Again, if you don't know the structures that I'm talking about, click here. But doing it in that paragraph will really allow you to make a more interesting relation to how your concept impacts society. I think the key is like, the earlier that you do this, the more time that you're going to save making generalizations later on. So do yourself a favor, set your scope early and write about particular things so you can make accurate statements. All right, so the third thing that I think my high scoring students did really well is rich storytelling. Some of their essays, particularly the Task B essays we're talking about here, read like good fiction novels. That's what you want to harness. And if you can't write like a good fiction novel, go and read some fiction novels, because you can't be a good writer without being a good reader. That's what my creative writing teacher said to me back in my first year of creative writing classes in my communications degree. You can't be a good writer unless you're a good reader. So to go find some inspiration on how to write nicely and captivate the reader and capture the attention of the audience, go and read some good fiction books. It doesn't really matter what it is, it could be anything that interests you, but I think particularly for that anecdote paragraph in your Task B essay, in that first paragraph, you want your essay to stand out, right? And to stand out and capture the reader's attention and to make them remember you, you have to write in an engaging way. You know, you have to describe the things that you saw and felt and smelt and did in that memory that you're introducing. So say your Task B prompts are about travel or something, and you're describing a moment that you had when you went traveling. I think I did that in a video here that I'll link above. Then you want your description of that memory to be as detailed as possible. You know, like, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? What were you seeing? What were you doing? Describe the little details, because the little details allow a reader to form a picture in their mind of what you're doing. And it allows them to connect to the story that you're telling. You know, human beings love stories. We love stories. I don't know why, but we just love stories. But you want to take advantage of that and write the best story that you possibly can in those Task B essays, in the anecdote paragraph, because the better the story you write, the better your essay will stand out, the more it will stand out to markers, and the better impression that you're going to leave on them. Like, you want your essay to be the one that they like, oh yeah, I really liked that story about their dog, you know, or about their experience overseas. Like, that was really nice. Leave it, you know, make a good first impression, tell a great story, and show off your ability to be creative as well, and your ability to have, like, the fact that you have maybe other talents and other interests as well, other than just being a doctor. Learn how to write well, and it'll pay off, because my high scoring students did that. And some of the stories that they told, especially at the beginning of their Task B essays in that anecdote paragraph, like, got me hooked. Like, I fell in love with the essay in the first paragraph. Like, they put smiles on my face, or they made me sit on the edge of my seat because the stories were so good. Learn how to tell stories in a good way. I'll give you another example here. Again, this was from my student who was kind enough to let me use some of his work and show you guys that. From one of his later essays that I just thought was one of the best that I've ever read. And this is, obviously he has a talent for writing, but this was a great example of how you can use storytelling, like it's fiction writing, in your GAMSAT essays to really hook the reader. He says, I was brought up surrounded by religion, attending weekly studies, Sunday church services, even leading my own group of youths. I suppose one day I started to believe in other things. Religion began to leave a sour taste in my mouth. Seeking sweeter things, I walked away, but there was no escape. My parents ensured I was still surrounded by religion. I recall the countless Bible readings after family dinner. Penance for a free meal, I thought. My parents were enforcing their last drops of power over me, forcing the Bible down my throat. Like, I just got some chills, you know, like, wow. I think his essay was about differing opinions, and he started, that was from the first paragraph of his Task B essay. And I remember, like, that had such an impact on me in the first paragraph of reading his essay that immediately he connected with me, and he made a good impression, and that set the tone for the rest of that essay. So, you know, try and do that. Try and use your rich storytelling to your advantage. And if you need some tips on how to do so, go pick up some good fiction novels or short stories and have a good read. And that brings us to the final thing that I think I noticed about my high scoring students' essays that really made a good impression on me as a marker, and that I think contributed to the overall quality of their essays. And that is self-awareness. Self-awareness, I think we can define as recognizing the limits to one's own ability, understanding that there are limits to one's experience, and how that limited experience might impact your interpretation and your analysis in your essays. It's having a conscious awareness of how your experience as a human have influenced your feelings about certain things, and also recognizing that that might be different to other people's experience. That self-awareness contributes to your ability to form mature arguments and balanced arguments, and also to come up with better counter arguments, I think, because you recognize the limits of the arguments that you're offering, and you're able to critique them and see them objectively rather than just through the lens of your own experience. In simple terms, it's basically not acting like you know everything, if you can read between the lines there. Maybe I'll start with an example of it this time from my high scoring student's essay. See if you can pick up on how this self-awareness contributes to the overall point that he's making. I think this was literally from the beginning of his essay about cynicism, like the first line. I still have much to learn, but this much I know. It is better to be open-minded and listen to others than it is to be blindly cynical. Already, he's showing that he still has a lot to learn, that he doesn't know everything, but this much he's certain of because of the experience of his own life and the knowledge that that experience has given him. You don't have to do it as blatantly as that, as explicitly as that, but I think if you can instill a sense of self-awareness into your essays, into your arguments, showing that maybe your arguments aren't necessarily always right. There's nothing worse than sounding like you're always right and no one else's opinions matter. You know, like, I think respecting that everybody in the world has different opinions, which is funny, that's one of the GAMSAT sets of prompts that they had in the March 2022 sitting. I think showing an awareness that everybody has their different opinions and that you might not always be right, especially if we apply your idea to every single situation, like it's probably not always going to hold true. So I think just showing an awareness of your limited ability to make completely true claims, other than like, you know, like that table is red, like or like this couch is green. Maybe other people experience green differently. You know, we don't know. Like colorblind people certainly wouldn't experience that green the same. So I think it's just like, instead of sounding as if you're trying to shove your argument down someone's throat and to make them believe it, it's dancing with the idea that this is the strongest argument that you can think of, but it might not necessarily apply in all cases. Arguments, especially in argumentative essays, are supposed to be convincing, certainly, but arguments aren't always perfect. So I think showing an awareness that, you know, you're not always perfect, that your argument might not always be perfect, I think will only add to the value of your essay. There will also be opportunity to do this in your counter argument section, in your body paragraphs, and if you're making a general counter argument, or recognizing the limitations to your essay in the conclusion. There's ample opportunity to do that there, because you kind of get to point out explicitly where the flaws are in your essay, to mention the things that maybe the marker was thinking if they disagreed with you. You know, like, what would someone say that disagreed with you on the topic? How does that influence your argument? Why is your argument still better than theirs? Or maybe it isn't in some regards, and that's also important to acknowledge. I think it only adds to the quality. If you show them that although you're fulfilling the task of writing an argumentative essay, you're still not perfect and you're working on it. You know, we're just trying to do our best. Just show them that you're trying to do your best. like we all are. I think that shows maturity and a lot of self-awareness, and it will only add to the quality of your essay, I think. So do it well. You can be balanced in the way that you do things. You can be balanced in the arguments that you make. It's sort of realistic as well, because not everybody always thinks they're right, and I feel like we're all full of a lot of, you know, insecurity and question as well. Are we right about things? How do we know that we're right about the decisions that we make or the things that we believe? I think showing them that you question those things and that you're not always sure about things will only make them like you more, because that's human, that's relatable. So yeah, self-awareness is key. All right, so those are my 4 main things that I noticed about my higher scorers. There were a lot of other things about their essays that made them great, and it also came down to the practice that they put in. You know, like, these people got started quite early on in their practice, like a few months before the March GAMSAT. I think some of them got started in November or December, so jump onto it as early as you can. If you've already started for September, that's great. If you haven't, start preparing now, start practicing now, start writing essays, keep watching these videos, sign up to my newsletters, get some tutoring if you need to as well. It's all about repetition as well. Like, keep writing essays, because if you keep writing them, you'll see improvement over time. My student who scored 81, shout out to her. She wrote like 40 essays in her preparation, and we worked for months together. She had something like 30 tutoring sessions or something with me. Like, she put in so much work to get to the point that she was, because she was, you know, she was quite anxious about her ability in the beginning, but she put in the work, she practiced, she kept on writing essays and kept on improving them every time. And eventually that got her to a point that she was able to write like amazing quality essays every single time she came to me. I was impressed, and yeah, she earned that 81. So take a trick out of the high scorers books. Get started early, write as many essays as you can, do as much research as you can, watch as many of these videos as you can, and I don't doubt that by the end of it, by the time September comes, you'll be able to achieve a high score as well. Like I said, I'll put all my links below. If you need some extra help, feel free to contact me, and you can find everything down there. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. If you got up to this point, I really do appreciate it. As always, leave a comment below, connect with the other people in the community, and join all of the links and things that I've got set up. And yeah, look forward to having you on board. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon for the next video.
So girls, move it around. If you see your main dog, get the brother a pound and just come on, just breathe, stop, for real, and give it what you got, just